Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Abby, the podcast lady. We have a special guest joining us today, courtesy of the Pod Match system. If you have not signed up for Pod Match yet, I am not getting paid to say this, but you definitely should because it hooks you up with some really cool people. And we are talking with Jackie Nolke today, and we are going to be diving into the topic of automated podcast growth and meta ads, which is something I am very interested in. So, Jackie, thank you so much for joining me today.
I'm super pumped to be here and thanks for having me.
So let's start by giving just kind of a 10,000 foot overview of who you are and kind of how you found yourself in this space, being an expert in this field.
Yeah, so I have been in the meta ads world for over a decade. So I am ancient when it comes to that. And I started out, I was actually an educator, and then I was getting my doctorate in leadership, and I fell in love with the marketing aspect of that. What happens as if you, as you know, if even back then, if you're researching things and looking up things online, you're going to see more ads about that type of thing. And then I started teaching myself meta ads and that kind of thing. So that kind of led to where I am today. And then a lot of my clients, I work mainly with high ticket business owners, and a lot of my clients have podcasts. What happened was we started testing a bunch of different things on how to grow their podcast using the ad system. And that's what I'm excited to talk to you and all your listeners to today.
So, before we really get into this, 10 years of dealing with meta in any capacity, night and day different from where it was 10 years ago to where it is today. Like, that must be the most insane whiplash to try to think about where you started with it and where it is now.
Oh, yeah. We've been through so many different major algorithm changes, major changes in ads manager, major changes in legal systems as far as privacy and things like that. The iOS update, which caused a lot of things. And then now, just anyone listening, a lot of people don't know this probably if they're not in the ads world, but there was it's called Andromeda. And that's the newest ad update that's happened in meta ads. So yeah, it keeps you on your toes. But for my personality, I get bored if I don't have something that is always changing. So it's good for me.
That's awesome. Then you have the perfect personality for this. My podcast talks to a lot of like beginner podcasters, people who are kind of just like figuring this out. So, for someone who's hearing the phrase automated podcast growth, what exactly does that mean? Let's break that down.
So it basically means using ads to grow your podcast, to get in front of targeted people who would be interested in your podcast, and then staying top of mind. So staying in the ad feed through what we call retargeting, so that they not only find you, but then they actually continue to listen to you. Because what happens all the time, people find a podcast, if they find it organically or however they find it, and they might be like, oh, this is so cool. And then life happens and they forget. So we want to stay top of mind. We want to stay in the feed so that they are reminded to continue to listen.
So, how exactly do you get started with that? Like, what are kind of the first steps to get that ball rolling? Because as someone who has helped other people build funnels and that sort of thing, it can feel a little daunting. Like, there's a lot of things that I even personally know I should be doing, but I'm not necessarily doing them. So, how do you get started with this process?
Well, the first thing, and I think every single business owner should do this, whether they have a podcast or not, then you need to go into Ads Manager and just create an ads account, even if you're not going to run ads right this second, and get what's called your Facebook pixel. And this is what you will install. And there's directions, you can YouTube it, but what you will install on your website so that they are tracking people that go to your website. This is crucial because if you ever want to start even running $5 a day ads, retargeting ads, that are not expensive, you could do that because it's collecting data. You don't want to be sending a lot of organic traffic and not collecting that data. That's a big mistake I see a lot of people making. So just do that, even if you're not like, okay, I'm going to do my ads right today. But if you plan on doing ads like anytime, in the next 90 days and beyond, pixel your website. And then as far as for a podcast, I always recommend sending traffic to a pixeled page. So instead of sending traffic directly to Spotify or Apple, you want to send traffic to a page you own. And the reason is because you can track that. So for my clients and what I teach people is you definitely want to have a page on your website that is dedicated to your podcast and have that page pixeled so that, again, you can retarget them, show up in the feed, be consistent, keep reminding people about you.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is step one, go to the back end of Facebook. It's just like in the Meta Business Suite where you go to the ads manager. Is that where you find that?
Yeah, it's going to be at business.facebook.com. It's a
Okay.
little bit different than the business suite. You'll find it's in data set and you'll go into data sets and you'll find your pixel. But yeah, tons of YouTube videos on that if you're stuck.
So go in, get the pixel, make a landing page for your podcast on your website that you own, and then get that going and get that percolating.
Yes. And what I recommend also, if you're a business owner with a podcast and you're trying to sell something off your podcast, you need to pick a signature episode where you are sharing your unique way you do things, what makes you unique, what makes you different, your process, your formula, whatever it is, and have that front and center with really good copy and messaging so that people listen to that when they land on that landing page. So you hook them. And I have also a way to get them to have conversations with you in the DMs. I don't know if you want to talk about that or not, but
I definitely want to talk about it. Talk about it right now since we're here.
yeah, cool. Okay. So what I recommend doing on especially your signature episode, and sometimes you'll do this on other episodes as well, is you basically give a code word for a really, really juicy freebie. And this is not just a freebie that like people can Google or ChatGPT or whatever. It's like a really good, juicy one that people would actually pay for. And what they do with that code word is they DM you. And what this does is this then gets them in a two-way conversation, right? So you can have an actual conversation. A lot of times podcasts are kind of a one-way street. It's passive listeners and us as the creators. Well, we want to take that, especially when you're selling high ticket, it's really important to start building those relationships and have conversations. So this is a way you can do that to have those conversations. And if you want to take a step further on that page where I was talking about with your copy, is you can tease, hey, you really want to listen to this episode because I have this super juicy thing I'm going to give you. And the code word is during that episode. So listen to that episode to get the code word, DM me, and then they have a conversation.
So with having that code word, would you recommend that they have something like ManyChat set up to automatically give that information follow up once the code word is set? Or would you recommend that they actually like be monitoring their DMs and have that conversation themselves?
I actually recommend they do it. They monitor themselves. I think that eventually you can use ManyChat, and I use ManyChat in several accounts that are really, really big accounts. But I think if you're starting out, if you aren't having thousands of people DM you, you're going, and especially if you're wanting sales, you're going to close that sale faster if you do it yourself and have those conversations. That way you can ask questions, you can open up the conversation, you can ask them like where they're at, and maybe you have other resources you can give them. So that just starts that conversation, builds that trust. So it feels very organic. So I recommend doing it yourself, at least at first. And then as you scale and grow, you can start using like ManyChat and things like that.
That is really solid advice. I have a few clients that I work with that are tossing around the idea of using ManyChat for certain things that they have, and they're kind of on the fence about it, but I'm going to be sharing this with them and let them know that, hey, you know what? You may be at a place where you can just handle it yourself.
Yeah, and I'm not against ManyChat and automation at all. Like I love automation, but I just think that depending on what your goals are, right? Like if you really are wanting to sell, like for example, high ticket and faster and all that, you're going to do it faster by having the conversation yourself. You just are. If you are putting someone in like a low ticket funnel, things like that, maybe you want to set up ManyChat, but it's also just a volume thing. And you're going to learn so much by having these actual conversations about your audience. It's going to give you so much market research that is like gold that it's worth it to do it if you can at all figure out the time to do it.
Honestly, in all reality, it probably doesn't take as much time as a person thinks it does. Like in my head right now, I'm thinking about like, oh yeah, I was texting my friend earlier and it took me like 10 seconds to reply to her. Like it's probably not as much of a time suck as you might be thinking it is.
And you don't have to do it right away. Like you could just set aside a time like Monday through Friday, 9 a.m., whatever time works for you. And you're like, this is when I'm going to respond to DMs, and that's it. And so you don't have to feel like you have to be on all the time. Like that's not necessary. People can wait.
Yeah, that is something that I've been trying to relearn this year is I don't need to respond immediately.
Yeah.
So I would love to kind of dive into, so when people are putting all this together, they're like, okay, well, I'm going to set up the pixel on the page and now I'm ready to finally start running ads. What are some of the mistakes that people are making when they go to do that first one? And how can they avoid them?
One is you have to have your messaging like really tight and good. So you really need to know who you're talking to, who you want to attract. In today's ad world, targeting is one thing, but really the messaging and the creative, which is like the actual ad, the actual image, or the actual video, is more important. So you really need to be very specific on who you're talking to, how you're going to help them. If you're high ticket, really tapping into their desires, because high ticket buyers buy based on desires. So really tapping into that messaging and having strong messaging both in your ad and on your landing page. So it all needs to be, work together. So I would say that is the number one thing, is not putting enough time into really thinking about that and thinking about their people and what they actually want and who they are and what they're thinking in their head and all that good stuff.
And I think this is a great segue into something else I found on your website as I was prepping for this interview, and that is your Michelin messaging. Can we get into that? Because, okay, I'm a huge foodie, and when I hear the word Michelin, I think Michelin star restaurant, high value, high ticket, desirable. So break down what Michelin messaging is, because I thought that was like a fascinating page on your website.
Oh, thank you. So it is what I've developed after years and years, millions of dollars in ad spend, working with high ticket business owners on how to position your messaging, what you say, and your words on your pages and ads and all that, that get high ticket buyers raising their hand and saying, yes, I want to work with you. And so there's a lot of different parts to it, but some of them are belief shifting because there are always beliefs that your audience believes that is hindering them from the results they want. So, for example, in my world, people might think, oh, in order to run ads, I need to be able to spend thousands and thousands of dollars a month. Well, I know that's not true because I've done it in accounts for over a decade. So, using messaging like that to really say, hey, I know you've heard this a lot, but that's not actually the truth. And I have the proof because I've been doing this. So that's one thing. And also, when you help people shift their beliefs, it positions you as a thought leader, and that's building that trust. Everyone's heard it where, how important trust is nowadays. And so your messaging really has to be focused on building that trust. All the parts of Michelin messaging are on building trust. Another one is what I call the feel good factor, and that is helping people feel good in your messaging and how you talk, because some creators are really kind of shaming their audience and things like that. High ticket buyers don't want that. They want to feel good. They will invest in feeling good. So really avoiding, drilling in the pain, making them feel like crap, all that kind of stuff. We don't want to do that. We want to compliment them, acknowledge how far they've come, acknowledge where they are, and then present our offer and how that's going to get them to where they truly desire. So those are just a few parts of it. Also just being really confident in what you're delivering and your process, and being hyper relevant and using their words. So the more relevant, and I'm talking about very, very specific type of situations. So if it's like, hey, have you been crying in the Target parking lot, because your child is having a tantrum or whatever, like using very, very specific things of what they can relate to, and then positioning the desire on the other side of it. This is how I'm going to get you to where you desire. But those are just a few parts of it. But yeah, it's been built off of years and years of testing to see what actually works.
Well, what I think is really cool about it is, yes, it applies to like creating your ads and stuff like that, but it also can apply to just making your podcast and how you present yourself out in the world. Like, we all know that person where we know we can go to them, we can have a conversation with them, and we're going to leave feeling like a better person because we had that conversation with them. And that is something that I know I aspire to be for other people, is to be that space where people can come, we can have a quick chat, and they're going to leave feeling lighter. Like, who doesn't want to provide that for someone?
I love that. And that is so smart. And I'm glad that you teach your people that, because yes, and people are using podcasts too as, something lighter in their day, like you just said, and they don't necessarily want to feel super heavy. And especially when it comes to any type of transformation, like if you're trying to get someone to engage in some sort of change, you don't want to make them feel really, really bad. You want them to feel good and excited and motivated to make that change.
So, backpedaling just a little bit, because I am realizing now that some of my people might not know the difference between like a high ticket offer and a low ticket offer. Can you break that down in the simplest of terms?
Yes. And so this depends on your industry. So obviously there's different low ticket and high ticket are going to mean different for different industries, but it basically just means on the higher end of what the norm is. You could use fashion, for example. Like there's obviously like high fashion that's, people can pay $2,000 plus for a pair of sunglasses, right? Or you could pay $10 for a pair of sunglasses. So that's, that's kind of the range. High ticket, I think there's high ticket, there's also ultra high ticket. So ultra high ticket is those that like out of this world, wild. There's probably like 1% of the population that's going to pay that. High ticket is more people that are established, obviously, and they have income, but it doesn't mean they're just like the one percenters. They're spending that amount of money because one, they just really, really want the solution or what you're going to be able to provide them, or they are really invested in the status upgrade. So that's another thing with high ticket buyers. A lot of times And it doesn't status upgrade doesn't necessarily mean financial. So that could be seeing as the best mom, seeing as the healthiest person, seen as, and both internally and externally, that kind of thing. So I think that there is a range. And so sometimes when people ask me this, I'm like, it's different for every industry, but just in your industry, know that, obviously there's a wide range of what people pay. And so high ticket is on the higher end of that for your industry.
And I love that you pointed out that it's not always financial. It's sometimes just how you're feeling is leveling up your life is a high ticket thing to do. So
Yeah,
that's great
exactly.
that you
People
pointed that out.
invested. Yeah, exactly. And almost everyone is motivated. It's been proven by status. But like I said, status doesn't necessarily mean financial status.
That is a great thing to point out. Okay, circling back to the meta ads. So we've established that a problem is you don't have your messaging right. And we've talked about the Michelin messaging. So something to think about as you're putting this together. What have you been seeing perform well for podcasters running ads? Is it the static posts? Is it a video version? Like, what is kind of the trend at the moment?
It's all the above. So you actually need a variety of creative. And so what we do is we have 3 layers in the ad system that we use for podcasts. And so the first one is going after a completely cold audience, meaning people that have never heard of you. They don't know, they haven't been to your website, they haven't engaged with you on social media. And so because we're trying to bring in those new listeners. And then what we do is we put everybody that lands on that landing page, like I was referring to before, into a 14-day retargeting sequence. And this just means that we're mixing video and static ads that are going to that episode we really want them to listen to. And we're just showing up in the feed for those 14 days. The third layer is we remove all the people who have been and that are in that current 14-day sequence. And that is a longer sequence, 60 to 90 days. And that's where you rotate different episodes in. So you're continuously to show into the feed. And again, you can use static and images. And really, I will tell you this, every ad account performs differently. So you have to test what works for you. It's just not how it works. So I always suggest testing both static and video, and just put them in your ad set, put them in your campaign, and just let them run and see which ones are working. And you can always turn off the ones that aren't.
So circling back on the retargeting thing, so you cold audience and then to the retargeting people for 14 days. The 14 days is up. They've been retargeted. They've seen the ads before. Are you like booting that sector of people out that haven't clicked on things, or like are you just going to keep trying to get them in? What's kind of the plan with that?
Yeah, no, you want to keep them in there because you want your audience to be a certain size, especially for the retargeting for the 30 and 60. And plus people are doing different things, whatever. Like we just keep them in as long as they have been to that landing page. They've clicked it. At some point they've seen your ad and been like, this is interesting to me. So we already know they've already raised their hand saying, hey, I'm interested in this. So we just want to keep on showing up. We just don't want to overlap that 14-day and that 90-day audience. So we remove the 14-day people. We have the 90-day people, 90-day minus 14. And that's where we're switching out like those 2 episodes or so per month so that they're seeing in their feed new episodes, new topics, that kind of thing, so that they're continuing to listen.
So what does the budget look like for a system like this? Like if someone's like, okay, this all makes sense to me, I want to try it. What can the average person expect to spend on something like this?
Yeah, we run it for normally $20 a day is normally the sweet spot. So for $20 a day, we're able to get them lots of traffic and stay continuously in the feed. So we're looking at somewhere like, let's just say 50 cents per person that goes to the landing page. And then retargeting is a lot cheaper because it's a smaller audience. And so for $20 a day, they get lots of traction. They're getting lots of new listeners. And then of course, if they set it up right, getting those DMs and making the sales as well.
That's incredible to think about because like I think about my own personal spending. I am a Jimmy John's addict, and a Jimmy John's sandwich with a Diet Coke and a bag of chips, it's going to run me about 18 bucks. So like for $2 more, you could be driving a bunch of web traffic to something that could, and if it's done right, will be driving more sales, which then pays for more Jimmy John's sandwiches. So
yeah. Yes, exactly. And you're an expert, obviously, at helping people grow their podcast. I'm not organically at all. I just know that with most of my clients, they're like, we just want this to really take off, and they don't want to put the effort in, to be honest. I mean, they want to record, but beyond that, they don't want to put the effort in, which is where I come in. I'm like, cool, I'll just do it for you. And yes, you have to invest. So it's a little different than if you aren't in the position to invest. But that way they can focus on other things.
Which I think is amazing. And I'm so glad that I have you as a contact now because I do get approached by people where they're like, I want to start this show and I want it to be the biggest show that it possibly can be right out of the gate. And I always have to like pump the brakes and go, okay, we're going to take one big deep breath. And I'm going to tell you that podcasting is a long game. This is not going to happen overnight. But now I know someone who can help them at least expedite the process.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
So, as someone's getting started with this, maybe they have a couple episodes made of their podcast. They're like, I want to do this. I want to get ready to go. Do you think it's smart for them to start right away, or should they have kind of a back catalog of shows and establishing them as a creator before they really dive into getting the word out there and getting things going with this?
Again, if you would just record like a signature solo episode, I always say that too, just because when you're running traffic, you want them to be focused on you and your process if you're a business owner. So a signature solo episode, just record that. You could always run traffic to that for like $5 a day, top of funnel cold traffic to that landing page we were talking about, just to start getting some more traction, that kind of thing. The algorithm will naturally do some retargeting. So it's not going to be as full retargeting if you did the whole system. But if you're just getting started, you have a really small budget, that's fine. Like if you just want to get more eyeballs on your show so that you can get more traction than with a little bit less of a longer game, I should say. I'm not going to say it's like at $5 a day, it will be like, lightning speed, because that's just not realistic, but it will help you speed up and also just amplify all your organic efforts. So yeah, just start with that signature episode. Even if you didn't run ads and you just want to start with that signature episode to start practicing getting people in your DMs, having those conversations, make the sales, and then you can put those sales back into your ad spend.
I would love if we could do a little myth busting right now.
Sure.
So I have always heard from people who have run Facebook ads, Meta ads themselves. They're like, oh, I just don't want to do it anymore because the second that I started paying for it, then all of my organic traction just pumped the brakes and it didn't work anymore. Is that real?
No, I think it's the opposite. So if you think about it, like you can take your best, and we do this with my clients, we take their best organic content and we put that out to cold audiences. We bring them back to Instagram, bring them back to different platforms, and then they stick around and they're engaging. We find that their organic engagement stuff goes way up once we are able, because we are able to get more eyeballs on their stuff, bring more people over. I think that's the opposite for sure.
That is so good to know because like I said, I've worked with a bunch of clients and some have bought ads for different things in the past. They're like, oh, but it wrecked my organic reach and I am not paying for it because I heard that it's not going to help me in the future. Like, I am going to be sharing this with them because that is such a good point. Because, yeah, once you get more people in, then they're in and it just shows the algorithm. Yeah, people like this, they're engaged, they're hanging out.
Well, also the platforms, they depend on advertising. They want you to advertise. So they reward advertisers. They want people that invest. And I think they see accounts that are actually investing and spending that money on advertising as superior accounts because they're doing what the whole business model is meant to be. So just consider it that way, especially if you can run $2 a day Instagram growth ads, things like that, easy to set up. And that's just going to get more people to your platform. But again, have your messaging right, send out the right kind of content. So I think what happens is people are sending out the wrong type of thing. And also there is testing involved. Like not everything organic goes well. And also not everything that you're going to present to your warm audience as far as like offers and things are going to be suitable for a cold audience because they don't know you. Right. So you have to think about those kind of things. And I think that's where people have bad experiences with ads because they're not thinking of like the whole picture and how it actually works as an ecosystem.
Oh, I love that. Treating it like an ecosystem. That is the best buzzword there is. Like, I think that's a great like visualization for it. It is an ecosystem. There's a lot of moving parts that all feed back to each other.
Right, and it all supports each other. It's like it also like your organic content and your ad content all supports each other and all, it all works together. And also like your website and things like that, when you have your pixel, it all just starts running as a system that feeds off of each other.
Okay. And I have one more myth that I want to bust because I was just having this conversation recently with a client. What would you say to someone who said, I don't want to pay for ads because it feels like cheating?
I would say, what business have you ever heard of that is $1 million business that has not paid for advertising?
That is a very good point.
Every super successful business in the world pays for advertising. If you have a huge brand, you're a celebrity, something like that. That's
right.
Obviously different. But you're turning on the fire hose basically when you're advertising. You're getting more eyeballs again on your stuff. And I just think that it is honestly a disservice to yourself to rely completely on organic algorithms that you don't have control over. You have control over ad.
It's a really good perspective shift of you're right, you don't have control over what the algorithm serves to people. I post about my business quite often, but the things that it actually serves up to people are like me unknotting a tangle of shirts. Like that got 16,000 views. Why? Why doesn't anyone get to see my stuff about actually podcasting? So
That's
that's a
hilarious.
really good point. You don't have control over it. So control your controllables.
Exactly. And it just gives you so much data too. Like as a business owner, like if you are really growing and scaling, you have to be into data and you get way more data than you do organically when you're running ads.
Every business owner I know is a complete data nerd. Well, this has been enlightening. I have a lot of homework to do myself from this. I'm super excited to set all this kind of stuff up for my own business and help my clients with it as well. I have a couple of wrap up questions here. The first one is, what is a podcast that you've been listening to lately?
Oh man. Okay. I listened to a bunch. Can it be true crime?
It can be whatever you want. What are you listening to?
Yeah, so I am a crime junkie. I love crime junkies. I was behind. I just like actually caught up with like two last night. So that's what I was listening to the most recently. So yeah, that's probably my favorite right now. But I listen to a ton of business, like ton of podcasts. So
I love that. And then last question, of course, is if people have been intrigued by this and they want to know more and they want to work with you, how do they get a hold of you? What's the best way to do that?
a couple ways. If you're interested in just done for you podcast growth with ads, you can go to velvet.juicymarketingco.com and it spells it all out. Actually, it spells out the whole funnel for you there if you're just wanting to look at that for yourself or whatever. And then juicymarketingco.com is the main website. I hang out on Facebook organically a lot, just on my personal page. So if you just want to connect and hang out, you can search me, Jackie Nolke. It's Jackie. N is in Nancy, Oelke. And I'd love to connect and just hang out.
And might I say, your website is beautiful. Like the
Oh,
colors
okay.
on there, it's laid out very well, like so easy to navigate. And I just love, like, I feel like there's just too much millennial grayish in the world, and your website is the opposite of that. So thank you for having some colorful fun on the internet.
Yeah, yeah, this is just a side note about all that. Like, just because you're high ticket doesn't mean you have to be black. Like their colors are like black and white or whatever, sepia. It's like
Yes.
my website is very bright and colorful, but that's my personality. So I could not turn to like the grays and the beige and
I
that.
was just going to say, I've only known you for a short time, but you are not a black and white grayish person. You are full of color. If you're watching the video version of this, you can see like her fun glasses, the pink couch behind you. Like that is amazing. I love that. Oh, well, Jackie, this has been such a treat. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. It was a blast.